Well, good evening. I am Dr. Murphy. I pray that those that are listening in live via Facebook in our classroom or those that are on our conference call line will be blessed by this part one of our classroom about gender dysphoria behaviors, especially in children. So we're going to be talking about that tonight really quickly, and wanted to make sure that you invite someone and make sure that you go on our Sessions 2 Real Facebook, that is YouTube, and sign up. Okay, make sure that you join us in our classrooms via the YouTube channel. Now, anyway, let me jump right into our lessons because we don't have a whole lot of time to get here. I want to make sure that I've got me jump start here on my Zoom to be sure and get that recorded. So let me see here. Now my mouth won't act up. I pray that you all are ready to really launch right into this message, and I pray that those that are listening in are going to make sure they take notes so that you can share what you're hearing in regards to gender dysphoria in children today. I'm Dr. Murphy. For those that are just tuning in for the first time and have not ever had the opportunity to listen to any of the teachings or classrooms that I have been doing. And so today I want to just jump right into my lesson. Let's talk about what is gender dysphoria, okay? I think what's important to know is that, simply said, it is gender confusion. And the reason why we got to talk about gender confusion because we got a lot of kids who are killing themselves today because they are confused about, being in a specific body, shape, or looking at themselves different than what they were born to be. Now, I want to talk about this first part to make sure that we really get an understanding how serious this has become, because many of the kids who are committing suicide today are going through this traumatic experience because they have not really came in contact with their gender. In other words, they feel like that God has made a mistake. This is a mismatch. That means for what I feel versus to who I am physically, there is confusion. And so I want to talk about that because what is happening, people are beginning to overlook the fact that a lot of these kids are demonstrating different signs at a very young age. And many of them, because they're demonstrating these signs at a very young age, a lot of times parents want to call it cute or they're just playing around. But to be really clear about this fact is that there is no such, I guess you want to call it a symptom, as it is more of what kids are actually showing you in a behavior or in gestures that they're doing. And they can start this as early as age 2 and 3 years old. But I want to just jump right into it. The reason why you're not seeing me on video here is because I'm not video already, and I had no intention to be on video anyway. I wanted to make sure I do audio, but make a platform available that you can come to in different ways. And so let's jump into this as far as counseling is concerned, and those who have daycares or those who are parents or grandparents. I want to make sure that we jump into this lesson to get a real revelation on what is happening when we have kids who feel like they're in the wrong body. Okay, and many of them, we don't want to just leave out the fact that many of them who are living with grandparents, or many of them who are being challenged, they are getting emotionally traumatized by the parent, maybe really badgering them about the way they're actually moving around or acting a certain way within their gender. And so children with gender dysphoria behaviors, they can include a lot of different things. As far as when I'm saying things, I mean in regards to what's happened to them emotionally. And a lot of the kids growing up in a family with two brothers who died from HIV/AIDS, we saw some signs, but we as kids, we all just assumed that this is the way they act. Back then, of course, we called them sissies or whatever in that time, during my time. But the term, there's so many terms now with the LGBTQ communities that they have so many different terminologies. And so this gender dysphoria is really what is called a medical term. Now, I want to get it straight. I'm not no doctor here, but what I am going to share with you from experience and dealing with different populations who have been challenged in this. And so I want to begin by saying we got to take some notes in recognizing these different behaviors. When I say behaviors, how are they behaving, how are they acting, how are they moving around, what are they doing? Okay, so number one, I want you to think about as a grandparent or a parent, is this child insisting that they're supposed to be the opposite sex? A lot of times parents overlook that when a child is saying, no, I'm not no girl, I'm a boy, and they think it's funny or that they're actually joking. But most of the time, these kids, when they do this, they're very, very serious. They're just trying to see how you're going to respond to it. And sad to say, many of the parents are not responding very well. And so the second thing we need to recognize when we're looking at gender dysphoria and, when kids are really, really not comfortable in their own skin, so to speak, they begin to dislike or they begin to refuse to wear clothes that are typically worn by their gender, their sex, meaning what they were born to be. They begin to want to wear these clothes that are typically worn for the opposite sex. And so these are some behaviors you'll begin to see. And then the third thing is they begin to dislike or refuse to take part in these different type of activities that are associated with their gender. Now, that's a big one because a lot of the kids who you see that they say, they just don't want to do anything but be over here with us women, that, he needs to go in the other room, or she always want to be over there with her dad looking under the hood, of a car, and there's nothing wrong with these, but the simple fact of the matter is that a lot of them dislike those activities or those things that are recreational even that may allude to that their gender is what it is, that they were born a girl, and so the expectations is for that child to act like a girl. And so they begin to dislike or they begin to refuse to take in these type of activities. They don't even want to act in any games that are associated with their born sex. They particularly want to take part in different types of activities or anything regarding the opposite of their sex. So that's a good behavior sign right there. And then the next thing is they prefer to play with children of the opposite biological sex, which means that if girls prefer to play with boys or boys prefer to play with girls, that's a very, very serious matter. Or they dislike or they refuse. And this is a great sign when you see a little boy always wanting to sit down rather than stand up as you are potty training them. They dislike or they refuse. Now, we do have some parents who begin to always sit the kid down. It's easier for them to set them down on the toilet or the potty, and before you know it, they get accustomed to this thing, especially if they're boys. But many of them, if you really pay attention, this dysphoria of not liking their body, they begin to dislike passing this urine. By sitting down, it's easier for them to feel more comfortable of who they really believe that they are emotionally, okay? Because physically, they can see clearly that they don't have the genitals as a girl. So they refuse to stand up. They want to sit down, and that's what we know that usually what boys are supposed to do is stand up, and girls sit down. But opposite is really what's happening. They prefer to do always the opposite, and it's always some type of issue when it comes to the parent or the grandparent because they're trying to figure out what is wrong with them, when actually there's nothing actually wrong with them in the physical realm. It's all in the emotional realm. And so many of the kids are dealing with things that we have to take a good look at to see, how deep has this dysphoria emotionally caused them to shut down in who they were really born to become. And so then they begin to insist on or hoping that their genitals will change. They really do. We have girls who begin to wear things that will squeeze their breasts, and even those that are very, very young, because kids today, especially girls, are getting their breasts large pretty early. And so we got to look at those who are insisting that they don't want their breasts to press out. You might, for example, have a boy who wants to get rid of his genital, his penis, and a girl want to grow a penis. So we got to look at these different areas that many of these kids are suffering from, and they are suffering silently, and many of them are being traumatized because they really want to become that their body is not really, their body is not born to be, but they want to become the opposite, that Daddy God made a mistake. And then this is the issue, because now these kids are getting emotionally traumatized that they begin to feel an extreme distress, okay? And they feel this physical change of purity that's going on in their body, puberty that's going on in their body. So now they begin to really, really get intensified of, man, I'm feeling this. Or, as they're growing older, maybe 12 and 13 years old, some young girls start their cycle early, and so they have this extreme distress that now I'm doing what girls do, and I'm not a girl. I'm a boy. This is what they're feeling. And also, you want to take note, during playtime, it's very, very important to take note of with this gender dysphoria emotionally that they're going through. And one of the things that I find that's very interesting, a lot of parents and grandparents don't pay attention to, and that they begin to want to play with their siblings, but particularly if it's a boy, he wants to play with the girl, okay? And that he may even try to, like put on her panties, put on her pajamas or her dress or her shoes, or even try to comb his hair like hers, or put little hair bows and things like that, and ribbons in his hair. Now, many a times we find this going on, but a lot of parents just say, oh, he's so cute, or they just playing house. But no. These are some signs that you got to pay attention to, and we can no longer just sit back and say, oh, they just play and they so cute. No. We got to make sure that we look at all the other signs that's coming up when these kids who are watching all types of videos and YouTubes and things like that. These kids are very smart today. As early as 6 and 7 years old, they're beginning to find a way to kill themselves. They're beginning to find a way to recognize the fact that they really want to be the opposite sex. And so they're looking for videos to see how to kill themselves, because the trauma is so, the trauma and this type of torment is so intensified that they cannot, deal with it. So in saying that, many of them who are boys will attempt to make their voice very girly. And when they're not getting that attention, then they may flip back and forth. But we have the attempt to change their voice in this high pitch or this girly tone. We have the voice who begin to have this pitch, the girls who have this pitch to try to make their voices become more deeper. Or, or they begin to hold their hands a certain way. We find that in the boys, holding their hands with a bend, always doing their fingers out like a girl would do. And you say, well, Dr. Murphy, why is that a girlish thing? Well, because customarily we see girls to do that, to act very girlish or very, queenish, if you want to use that term, holding their hands out and looking very special. And so this particular holding the hands out or sitting away a girl does, even when seated, if they're a boy, or vice versa. If a girl is sitting away, a boy would normally sit with his legs wide open with a dress on, because she just hates so bad that she has to have the dress on, or even try to sit or walk a certain way. It's a great sign. The reason why a lot of this is going on, because they watch and they learn from their siblings. Those who are in their own houses, they see sometimes that maybe dad or mom has accepted that child better than they've accepted them. This appears to be something that's more attention-getting. If I act like a boy, then maybe you'll let me go with you, Dad, or if I act like a girl, then maybe you'll allow me to, to be there and be close to you. Because now I'm acting like a girl, when many times men who wanted boys, having babies, they may have wanted a boy when it was a girl. And so we got to look at this feminine type or boyish type of behavior that we can no longer just say, oh, they've been watching daddy do this, or oh, they've been watching his brother do that, and so on. So you see these behaviors. They're seeing these behaviors. and things that they feel like is acceptable. But some of them are, the problem is these kids have been shaped into that. And without going into being into the realm of the spirit, but I do want to say that we got to understand that the spirit knows when something is bent in a bloodline. So that means the spirit of iniquity could be working, which means that it has leaked over maybe from the third or fourth or even the fifth generation. And these kids are not only just going into this realm because of what they're seeing or because of what they may be confused about, but they're watching and they're learning from these siblings. They're watching and they're learning from their peers on how to act or how to be accepted in their own community of this type of gender dysphoria population. But some of them, because they're in homes, and some of them because they know that the parent is not going to try to redirect them about their behavior, because some of them are just saying it's cute or it's just a fad that they're going through, while these kids, because of this, this generation iniquity, now it has an open gateway to be able to continue in this fashion. And so we'll call it cute. The grandparents or the mama or whatever, the daddy begins to become very angry because the son or the little girl is doing just the opposite of their gender, and it begins to intensify this silent struggle that they're facing. So why? Because they begin to demand that they be different. They begin to demand that they don't do this or that again, and we are, notorious of saying, stuff like, you need to change that, you need to walk like this or talk like this, or quit acting like a sissy, or you too tomboyish. And so when that kind of stuff going, these kids become very, very traumatized. So these children that are having this gender dysphoria, they're going to display some of those behaviors that I just shared this while ago. But if they're in this realm that I just described this while ago, oftentimes we see these kids as they're growing older, they begin to take these role plays on, and before you know it, they're cross-dressing in the room, or they're doing things, in these different phases based on how old they are or based on, what they know that maybe you're not paying that much attention to. And a lot of this stuff are, become very, very, problematic emotionally, because these kids don't know how to express, because they don't want to disappoint, okay? They don't want to send any hurt or any type of, disappointment to the parent, while they're saying you too tomboyish, or while they're saying that you need to act like boys supposed to act. I think that as far as gender dysphoria is concerned, we've got to make sure that we recognize that many of these kids who are in this fashion, some of them may have been spiritually infected by incest or rape by the same gender or what have you. But that's not going to justify the fact that, we have to just sit back and go, oh, well, they are a victim of so-and-so. We have to pay attention. We have to make sure that we don't just look. We have to act, because a lot of these kids, because they're going through this type of gender dysphoria emotionally, that's why we're finding so many of them, and it's sad to say, parents are coming home and they're hanging themselves, or they've blow their brains out or taking some type of substance because they can't take it no more. The populations now that we're dealing with, so many of these kids are silently suffering from not wanting to be in their body, okay? They don't want to accept that I have a penis. They don't want to accept that I have breasts. They don't want to accept that I don't have a penis and I'm a girl and I want one, and vice versa, I don't have a vagina and I'm a boy. And so we got to know that when we're looking at these types of areas in these kids' lives, along with the cross-dressing that you think is something that's playing house with, we got to pay attention to what these kids are doing to become the opposite sex. They're insistent on you allowing them to be the way they want to be today. And then the parents are agreeing with this because they don't want to hurt them. They don't want to send them any emotional distress when you already know what's going on with them. But these are conditions that many of us have allowed to remain just like it is. Oh, wow, I think somebody just tried to come on, that want to remain just like it is. And many of these kids today are suffering emotionally because they are not getting what they need from their home. Let's look here. Somebody's trying to get in. Oh, hi there. I didn't know I had the video on. I guess I see you there. Are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, I guess he's trying to get into the waiting room. I don't know. But anyway, I'm really, really concerned about parents who do not and who will not allow themselves to take a minute and, listen to this part of what I'm saying. Too often, parents have allowed their children to be in this shape, and many of them are killing themselves because, I think many of them have really, really been challenged with trying to cry out for help. And many of them are crying out for help. Many of them, are not even wanting to say anything because they fear that the parent won't have anything else to do with them. And so I just want to say I am one now that is becoming more and more active in regards to making sure that parents and leaders understand that we have got to deal with these kids, the ones that are dealing with so many different traumatic issues in our families, who we know that are up close and personal with us, who we know that needs to be dealt with in regards to the behaviors that we have ignored for more than decades. And we got to make sure that we know how to handle it rightfully and gently. And so today I just want to share just a little bit about rightfully and gently. Now, we all know, those that are counselors who may be on here or may listen to this later, we all know that that iniquity or that issue that is in our bloodline or that you may see in someone else's family. We all know that these are some areas that we've got to deal with regardless if people want to admit it or not. Did I say go and start telling parents that your child is gay? Well, if you are a counselor who is anointed in deliverance, you should be able to see anyway if that child or that family member or whomever are having some challenges with their gender, or they're having some challenges with the way they're dressing or the way they're behaving based on what I described here briefly. Now, next month, what I'm going to cover is talking about areas of the body, this body dysphoria, which means that I get into a little bit more deeper about why is it that those who are in their bodies, they feel trapped, and why is it that many of the ones that we know that we say we'll lay hands on them and we'll cast it out. You cannot cast this out. This is something that has to be processed out spiritually, which means that you have to have a counseling opportunity with them so that you can begin to assess spiritually what the child is going through. And when I say spiritually, that means you will begin to see if this thing, based on whatever tool you're going to use, is it something that the child is facing from the generational iniquity or curses, if that's the word you want to use, or if it's something that the child is in distress about, some type of abuse or what have you. But that's the first thing I would recommend. Always do your pre-deliverance assessment so that you can really understand. I'm going to be teaching on that class. I think sometime I also attach the next upcoming class that we're going to have. But I think you need to look at that calendar and see what those dates are. But that counseling piece is going to be very, very important. And you can't just send your kids or recommend, that's something I try not to do, or recommend kids to go to counselors that you have not spiritually assessed yourself. Because a lot of the kids who are trying to get with different counselors or counselors who are trying to get into the realm of deliverance is not good, because many of them may be suffering with some gateways that are open, and these kids are really going to be in a greater struggle than where they were. When people have issues with sexual, struggles and things like that, it's very, very important that we do not allow people to get, laying hands on the kids and, getting them to sit down and talk to them about struggles and bringing up situations or comments about things in regards to a sexual struggle, whether it is physically or whether it is emotionally. So we need to be very, very careful about the referral. We need to be very, very careful about ignoring the signs and the behaviors that I have mentioned here today. And we got to make sure that we take those to the parent or the grandparent or any of the caregivers, and make sure that you, if you have that type of relationship, that you can tell them about what you have recognized, what you need to discuss. This is a very sensitive topic to be able to move towards someone that you love or even get with a parent or a father or a mother and to tell them that you see that the child is in a crisis in regards to their gender confusion. You know, gender dysphoria is confusion. They display these behaviors and they feel like that they shouldn't have been born this way. And so you got to be very, very careful about talking to a parent or even a caregiver or a father or a grandmother about a child that they're taking care of or that they have custody of, and tell them about what you have witnessed or that you believe that God is showing you. Because what could happen easily is that that child could be very, very hurt by what the grandparent, who may not be mature, to say, let's talk about what you're feeling, your auntie or your uncle or your grandma or whomever may be sharing with you, with that child, about what they said, you said. That's very serious. And this is why we have a lot of kids who feel so rejected and so abandoned by this issue of what am I going to do with this body I got, you know, because it don't fit with what I'm feeling, okay? It don't fit with what I am feeling. And so I want to stop right there, and I want to open the line up to see if we got any questions or comments based on what you've heard tonight. Like I said, on next month, I'll be coming back to try to pull a little bit more in regards to why is it most of these kids behave this way, and why is it that they, you know, they got this type of behavior where they have all these behaviors where it appears that they're acting like a girl when they are a boy, or vice versa. You know, why do these persist? Why is it that now when we're talking about children versus adults, we'll get into that on next month, but we're also going to be talking about, you know, as far as dysphoria is concerned, being trapped in this body. But we're going to also talk about, you know, in regards to what's going on with the body. Why is it that many are really, really working hard to press their breasts in? And why is it so many even now are working hard to get surgery, to get rid of their genitals, you know, to, you know, change that to what they're feeling? It's a very serious matter. And so wanted to bring this lesson tonight to hopefully to be able to let some grandparents and caregivers, parents, to know that we've got to stop these statistics from growing. We got too many kids who are suffering today emotionally, too many who are going through the challenge of not understanding why is it that, you know, my vagina is here, but I don't feel like I'm supposed to have this. We got too many who are going to bed troubled every night, self-medicating because they don't want to deal with or they regret that they were born the gender that they are. Amen. And so I want to hear if there's anybody got any questions or comments about, if there's anyone on the call. I don't even know that because I can't see on the chat line on Zoom. You can do that. You can let me know by sharing typing in any comments that you may have. Let's see if the chat is open. Let's see. Let me see. I don't see but one person now. I don't guess he's open either. Okay. Well, is anybody on? Are you there?
Hello, Dr. Murphy.
Hi there.
Hi, this is Jackie. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. Thank you for sharing. I know I was taking notes as you were saying the different things, and I know I could say I can relate on. I'm gonna say at least 3 people that I know. Niece, well, 2 of them are nieces, and one is a grandson. And I had mentioned before a little bit about it, but it was a few years back. But he's turning 11 now. My grandson, he does have different, I think, things that like even all the signs you say to be watching for. I could pretty much check every sign off of seeing those different behaviors or different mannerisms, if you want to put it that way, of seeing of what he's doing. And I guess even what you were saying, this is something that can't be, how did you say it? It has to be like even some counseling and stuff, like even like if he's playing a video game, he always picks the female instead of picking a male. And even when asking him about it, he'll usually say something like, well, they fight the best, so they have the better moves, or different things like that. And I know his mom had made mention, even when he was maybe about 4 years old, is when we really started noticing different things. And she was just saying how he's just so different from his younger brother, which is the one that he's mostly closest to. But I know I have a granddaughter that they kind of like real close, and he had always been like try to be mean toward her. And, even once upon a time he did say he wished he could be a girl, in that sense. But even when we say anything to him, now it's kind of like, I guess you would say, like he's hiding back with it, not wanting anybody to think he's thinking in that term. But I know his younger brother, he shares a lot with him, so he sees a lot of different things. So I guess I'm just, this is the one that's kind of they've been estranged from me by their mother. It's my son's children, and I don't get to see them as much as I had before in the past. So I guess other than me just praying, or if it's something that I can do. And then with that also, I have a niece that I just recognize that was coming, even what you were saying about her breast. She just turned 15, and to be as small as she is, but she has very huge breasts, but she's been very subconscious of that for a while, even to the point where I noticed I had seen her about a couple of months ago where she's shaving her head, and it looks like a boy haircut. So even, trying to talk to us, I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm seeing different patterns, like you say, even the other niece where I think she's grown now, but even when she was little, she was the only girl out of 5, I think she had 4 brothers, and she started to dress like that, and the mom was like, oh, this is just a phase, she's just going through this, some of the same thing that you're saying, but she was the one buying her clothes, and she was dressing her like a boy, and then here it is now, some 10 years later, she is, hey, I like girls, and she has girlfriends, and her mom is like, oh, okay. So I guess what can we do, even because they are not my direct children, they belong to another parent. I'm just a grandparent, but what can I do to start, even, like I said, other than praying? I know I'm going to continue to do that, but what is it that I can do as their grandparent to even try to reach out to them, or even speak with their parents? Is that some kind of approach I can do?
I really want to commend you for even being interested and for joining me tonight on such a sensitive subject. But what the deal is a lot of parents and grandparents, even those people who may be just taking care of the kids, have been, maybe the parent's been very ill and maybe a relative is taking care of them. When they're seeing these signs and they want to talk to the parent or the grandparent about it, it's very difficult, because sometimes people want to take it offensive, because I'll never forget one time I had mentioned about someone I know about some signs I had saw, and I could tell that they were offended by it. And I said, well, I just think what you should do is just pay some attention to this and that, and then you'll be able to see later. And they did. Later down the road, they came back and told me what they saw based on what I said. And they were offended by it. But what Daddy God did do, I did plant the seed for them to be able to get a chance to check it out, And so, again, that person, too, is full-blown gay. They didn't want to acknowledge it. So the best thing for you to do is find the right time through prayer and, to see when is it that it's going to be best for me to, to speak to the person and maybe have some coffee or whatever, or go out to lunch and just say, have you noticed this? I'm very concerned. And then have you ever seen any particular signs, because we got to keep an eye out, because I'm so concerned, and then right away you need to put your discernment, really in full speed, because a lot of times people get very offended because you're trying to say, oh, you're trying to say my niece or my grandbaby got gay tendencies, But you got to make sure that God is leading you to do it. That's number one. Talk to them. And then number two, when you're actually getting ready to speak to them, this is something that you got to make sure that you know that Daddy God has shown you. Because, we see so much today, sometimes we would put this with that ain't that. Because kids have these fads today that they wear things and look a certain way because they want to look different or be included. And so we got to know by the Spirit of God that is what we see, and do not renounce it out of your mind or out of your seer, because if God is showing it to you, it is what it is. So spend the time with God, find out the best way and when to talk to them. I would never talk to the child. I always talk to the caregiver to let them know that you're very concerned first. And if they give you the release to talk to that child, make sure that you're equipped, with deliverance techniques and counseling skills to be able to handle, what may come out of that, because you don't want that blood on your hand if something happens to that child. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Does that help you?
Thank you. Yes, it does give me a frame of reference to go, but I thank you for that.
Amen. Well, thank you for joining me. Is there anybody else on the call that would have a question or a comment?
Dr. Murphy, this is Lorraine. I have a comment.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
I just wanted to say that most people, women, we don't understand that every moment of conception, we have to be very careful of what we think, what we say, because our child has a soul and is an active participant in forming the body that it will inhabit to fulfill their mission in life.
Right.
So if that child, while he's inside of gestation in your womb, can feel that, man, I wish it's a girl, or you have this desire for a girl, but then you have a boy, it can cause a lot of traumatic experience for that child because when it's born, because it feels it. Most people don't understand that because they don't understand the supernatural aspect, something of conception.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying?
That's right. And I'm so glad you brought that up. We're going to be talking about that next month on the body portion of it, and how a lot of, kids and even adults, when we're talking about both, are emotionally suffering because a lot of them, the parent did not want them to be their gender.
Right.
And when the parent does not understand, like you said, they are creating this child to feel the emotion of how you want, because your emotions, of course, are attached to the baby.
That
is
is
why
correct.
I didn't do that. I would say, well, God, whatever you want me to have, I want. I just want them healthy. But a lot of women just, no, please be a girl, please be a girl. And you start buying all these girl things or looking at girl things all the time. This is in your emotional realm. And so because it is, now we're moving from the emotion to the spiritual realm. And now this baby, this iniquity that is called bent, that's what I'm talking about, it has an opportunity to act out somewhere down the bloodline where it's an open gateway. Now it has an opportunity to really, really manifest in that baby's, in the womb, because this parent wants so bad for this baby to be this or that. And we won't leave out perversion that's, probably going on in that bloodline. So it's easy, it's bent, and it's easy. Unless that person is saved and can really understand this spiritual realm that we're talking about right now, then it's so easy for that child to be born with confusions, what gender dysphoria is.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Amen.
Anybody else? Anybody else got a comment or a question? I can't see if there's anybody else on here but y'all. My deal won't let me. But I just pray that this has been a blessing for you all, and I pray that God will continue to bring more revelation as we, continue to do these different classrooms. You don't want to miss the one that's coming up. I don't even see the calendar here now, but I did send the calendar out. The one that's coming up, let me look at it and see. That's coming up next I don't know if it's in the next couple of weeks. I don't remember what it was, but y'all be sure and look at the calendar that was sent out to you, and then you'll be able to see what we've got coming up. I attached the calendar to the one that I emailed out to everybody. I'm trying to click on it now to see. Let me see. So that's going to be, it's going to be the 26th. Oh, yeah, the Safe Sanctuary series, what I'm doing on. I'm calling it that series. It happens in the church, too. So I'll be talking about female sex offenders because we do have sex offenders that are in daycares, that are on, at the schools and everywhere else. And so I'll be talking about the female sex offender and how important it is for us not just always be looking at the realm of the, of the natural when it's dealing with the male, okay? We got to know that the female is in this as well, amen? And so I'm really, really, really concerned about parents who are not paying attention to daycares or children's church and things like that with women. And where I've learned that they're a lot more prevalent at is those single women who are in these realms of caregiving. And so I want to make sure that we pay attention because many of them have been abused themselves. Is there any other comments or questions based on what you have learned so far? I'd love to have some comments or some suggestions on what I'm going to be talking about next month on part 2 in regards to the dysphoria body, meaning that, like I said earlier on, the entrapment, wanting so bad to get that gender changed, and wanting so bad to get, the person who even that birthed them, to get them the help because they feel like it's their fault. It's really a traumatic thing that a lot of adults that are facing today, and it's really, really sad. Is there any other comments before we get off here tonight? Any questions? Okay. Well, we're going to get off. I know you saw the photo that I sent out that says, why is my son, my daughter acting like this? I think from just the comments that you've heard here tonight, it's very important that all of those that are in clergy, all of those that are counselors, coaches, or what have you, to realize that we've got to look at the fluidity of this thing. We've got to look at how broad and how silent it is and how it moves, because it's not something that we just say, oh, they act gay, or oh, they, no, we've got to go a little bit further. We've got to take a greater look in the spirit to see how are we going to be able to help the populations who are right up close and personal with us. And the reason for that is because that gives us an opportunity to see how we can, as I heard Evangelist Jackie said, what can I do to help the populations that are close to me, so you can inform and so that you can make aware in your own house, whether it's the mother or sibling or whomever, about what's really happening to that child who you're saying within yourself, what is wrong with them? Why are they acting like this? Why does she want to keep doing that? Because we've got to recognize the fact that these may be silent, but as you can see, they're very, very active in demonstration about them not being happy and being that same body that God gave them. They just saying, no, God made a mistake. And so, Father, I thank you that even now we're praying that you will begin to minister to those who are listening and that they, too, will recognize that gender dysphoria is not something just a terminology that is medical, but it is something that is very real, very spiritual. And I pray that they'll begin to look in their own homes and the population that they may be counseling and go to another dimension of learning so that we can help these, so we can break the cycle of suicide, and that we can really, really come as a family to heal within the house first, and even as a church to grow into being more socially active, to be able to help the populations who are going through gender confusion. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Well, we'll talk to you all then on next week. You all have a wonderful weekend. That is good night.
Yes,
God bless
good night.
you.